Okay, a few things to have in mind before you start. You're going to need your water, like this, some kind of container of water, your paint. So what we're going to start with is just a dab of white and a dab of black. That's all you need for a black and white painting. You don't need anything else. And you need your sprayer. So you should have this so that you can just occasionally spray the paint. Acrylic paint will dry out and will become unusable if you just let it dry for a few minutes. We have been using watercolor through the driest part of the term. So from here on out, things should be a little bit easier. And the kind of acrylic that we got is open, so that means that you have a little bit more time. And the first thing you're going to do is make a little pile right between the white and the black. And then you can see what I'm doing. So I started with white. You always start with the weaker color. And I'm mixing little dabs. These are called kernels. Little kernels in from the side. I'm not just throwing them in the middle. I'm not trying to make up, I'm not trying to guess. What I'm doing is I'm looking for a specific color. What I want is for this color to be right in between black and white. So it should be really close to the center, and that's getting closer, right? You can see it doesn't lean toward black or toward white. It should be in the center, and it should be about a neutral gray. So I'll send a little image that shows what a neutral gray looks like, so that'll be posted. And next week we'll be making a color wheel so that you'll have an idea of what each color on the color wheel should look like in theory. Now, being a little bit off is not a big deal. You can still paint if your colors are not perfect, but color theory is a part of it. And one of the color theory points, okay, so that's about the midpoint between black and white, is that level of gray. Okay, now if you make this up and don't spray the paint, about the time that you get this made up and in good shape, the paint will dry. So you are going to do that. And we're going to make up a little extra. This color in the middle, now that we've determined that we can make that color, and that the white you can see is much weaker. So we added just little tiny bits of black, and it made very slow changes. But we could add a whole lot of white, and it barely makes any change at all. So the black is the stronger of these two colors. But what we're going to do is make up a fairly good amount of this. And we're going to continue the blocking in process, and I'll show you how to block in with acrylics. Okay, again, we're not dialing in the colors perfectly. You're just going to get them pretty close. And so one of the things you can keep an eye on is to see, as you create this middle color, is to see about how strong or how weak this is. So in this case, the black and the white are, the white is a little bit weaker color than the black. Okay, so then I'm going to put a chunk of that color over there, quite that big, and a chunk of it right here. I'm going to move the black a little further over into this corner. So I have a little bit of room to work. I'm going to take about half of what's left of the black and make a darker gray right here. Right? Can you see that that's darker? And take about half of the existing white, add it there, and you can see that that's lighter too. Okay, so now what I have is 3 values of gray: a light gray, a medium gray, a slightly darker gray, and a black. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and make this darker gray just a little bit darker, just because I happen to know that we'll be using a bit of it, and I can always squeeze a little bit more out of the tube of black. All right, and the reason you've got 2 palette knives is for this, is you can use the other palette knife to clean this palette knife, which will help keep things moving along and to keep it neat. It doesn't matter what the shape is of the second palette knife, so in this case I'm just using one that's the same basic shape, and I'm going to throw that in the middle since it's closer to that. Okay, and this also helps me not waste so much paint. And it's a lot faster to clean palette knives than it is to clean brushes. Okay, then the other thing is, because these are acrylics, you clean everything right away. Don't leave brushes or knives laying around with paint on them. It gets much harder to clean up later on. We'll talk about that, and I'll post a video on cleaning your tools and brushes. But one of the keys is don't leave them in water. Never leave your brushes or palette knives in water that's deeper than the ferrule. So if you put this in a bucket of water, only have about that much water. So water up to about there, about 1.5 inches of water. Never let the handles get wet. And since these have wooden handles, don't rest them in the water either. They'll get wrecked. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's how you start. Set your palette up, set your work up under a light. Now I'm gonna slide this over so it's under the camera. And we will start the demo. But I'm gonna do this in chunks. So the first chunk of the demo we just finished, and that is the setup. So now we'll start the demo itself.